This is the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Apple has done it again. I am so excited. You can see it on my face. I'm as excited as a child. The design of this phone and how it feels in your hand is unmatched. But is this the best phone to get at the end of 2025? Let's find out right here in this video. Well, if you are in the market for a smartphone right now, I can totally understand it is so frustrating, confusing, and overwhelming. I have been looking for a smartphone for the last few months and it's been hell. The market is flooded with all kinds of crap right now, and if you have been an iPhone user, I'll tell you the simple answer. Just go and get the new iPhone. I said it. That is the long and short of it. You do not have to watch the entire video. The answer is just get an iPhone. But if you do want to hear me out and understand the logic behind getting the iPhone and also want to know how I got the iPhone 17 Pro Max 512 GB for under 1,35,000 rupees, watch the entire video till the end. Right, so to give you some context, I have been an Apple user ever since the 5S. After the 5S, I got the 10S, and after the 10S, I got the 13 Pro Max, and then the 15 Pro Max. So that has been my journey with the Apple ecosystem. And before that, I was using Android. But then ever since I moved into the Apple ecosystem, I've never looked back and I never missed Android. And see, I mean, my needs are very basic. I'm a very simple guy. I just need my phone to work and get out of my way on a daily basis, where I forget that it's even a thing anymore, because I just want to live my life and get on with my day and not worry about my phone. Well, I remember when I used to be an Android user, I used to always try and keep up with the latest and greatest of the technology, because the updates in the Android world are very frequent and they're also extremely confusing. Well, some of those features are extremely convenient and crazy, and I always wonder why Apple doesn't bring some of these features into the iPhones. But then I've never really missed anything in the iPhones, they just work and they're great phones. And an important thing to tell you is, once I got into the Apple ecosystem, I stopped looking at phones altogether. I stopped looking at what's the latest phone, what the features of these phones are. So ever since I got the iPhone, I just stopped looking at phones altogether. And so the new tech in the Android phones didn't really matter to me. But then I did start noticing that my battery life on the iPhones was quite bad. And that is when I started looking at Android phones once again, just to have better battery life in my smartphone. And by then, some of my friends had Android phones who even had fast charging in them. So some of these features are really insane for people who have been using an iPhone. So that is when I started looking for options in the Android world, so that I could, have better battery life and also probably fast charging, because these two are so important in your phone on a day-to-day basis that they can actually make or break your buying decision. So after the 5S and the 10S, I began again looking at Android phones just so that I can have better battery life. And I did think of switching back into the Android world, but lo and behold, the 13 Pro Max. See, by now I had finished college and I believed that I was a little more mature and practical in life. My requirements were very clear and simple. I needed the best camera possible. I also wanted the best battery possible in a smartphone. And that's it. It didn't really have to be an iPhone per se. It just had to be a phone with the best battery and the best camera, and it didn't matter if it was going to be an Android or an iPhone at this point. However, it so happened that the iPhone 13 Pro Max had launched, and this was the phone with the best battery in the world by now. And see, my charging patterns are horrendous. Like, I just cannot keep up with the ritual of charging my phone every night or every morning. I just cannot keep up with that. And if my phone doesn't hold enough juice during the day, then I am in soup. I am in trouble because I just want my phone to last as long as I need it to last and get my work done so that I can go back home peacefully. So I just needed a phone that would make me forget about charging it altogether. And yes, I get it. You need to charge your phone as soon as it drops to 20% and then unplug it once it's up to 80, 90%. And this extends your battery life, and it's really amazing if you can keep up with this ritual. But then see, I am somebody who wants to use my phone like a phone. It has to work for me. I don't want to work for the phone, take care of it, and maintain it and all those things. I don't care, man. I'll just probably replace the battery when the battery starts dying, so it really doesn't matter to me. And see, if you are somebody who can keep up with your charging ritual and can maintain the pattern of charging your device every day, hats off to you. Full respect to you. But I am somebody who loves thrashing my phone, and I just don't want to think about it. Even if it's like at 5-10%, I want it to last for long enough so that I'm not worried about plugging it in, carrying a external battery pack, or charging it on the go. I just don't want to do any of these things. I just want it to last. I just need it for using maps or WhatsApp or making a few calls just till I get to my destination. So I expect this much from my phone. So the point is very simple. Having good battery life on your phone goes a long way, and the 13 Pro Max was the only option that could give me the best battery life possible. And I thoroughly enjoyed using the 13 Pro Max up to 2 to 3 years, but then it wasn't without its flaws. The size was so big. I wasn't used to such a big phone. The 5S was really tiny and the 10S was kind of big, but then the 13 Pro Max started pushing the envelope forward in terms of size of the phones, and to hold such big phones on a day-to-day basis was actually a big problem. And especially when you're carrying multiple things. I'm a photographer, I'm carrying my camera equipment and other bags, and if you're going to the supermarket and you're carrying things from the car and you're coming home, then you have a lot of things in your hand. And at this point, the 13 Pro Max is a big pain to have because one, I don't like putting my phones in the pocket. I'm just not used to doing that anymore. And to hold it in your hand, then one of your hands is completely occupied. So that is quite impractical when you have things to carry. But then the size of the screen is so amazing on the 13 Pro Max. I started getting used to this big screen on my phone and consuming content, and also on a daily basis, just reading articles or replying to messages and looking at pictures became so comfortable for my eyes on that big screen. And whenever I tried to switch from the 13 Pro Max either to the 13, or when I'd hold my friends' phones who had slightly smaller screens, I would try and see if I am comfortable. But then going from a big phone, from a big screen to a smaller screen is quite a task, especially because your eyes tend to get used to a certain size. And for me, I work with my eyes day in, day out, and I need my eyes to feel comfortable. I know when I keep my 13 Pro Max and a smaller phone side by side, my eyes tend to settle on the bigger screen more easily, and it's a strain for me to read things on a smaller screen. So ever since I got the 13 Pro Max, I got so used to that big screen. It's been very difficult for me to switch away to a smaller screen ever since I got the 13 Pro Max. And also, of course, like I've been saying, the battery life on the 13 Pro Max is insane. Like it's just so good that it got me addicted to that battery life. After the 13 Pro Max also, I tried to switch to an Android phone or to a smaller phone, but then battery life became such a big problem for me on any other option. I really wanted to switch from the 13 Pro Max, like I'm saying, because of the size of it, but then no other phone was going to give me that huge battery life. So it became very difficult for me to actually pick a phone. I really badly wanted to, but then I just couldn't switch away from the 13 Pro Max because I was really spoiled. So the camera and the battery on the 13 Pro Max were just out of the world. Even the 14 was kind of good, but then the upgrade to the 14 didn't feel like it was a big enough upgrade to actually justify spending so much money on a new phone. So the 14 really didn't excite me that much. And by now the 15 had launched, and if I continued using my 13 Pro Max, I wouldn't get a good resale value in order for me to get the new 15. It was a good idea to sell the 13 Pro Max and get a new 15 Pro Max just so that I can get a good deal on the 13 Pro Max and also get a nice discount on the new 15. Like I said, I did try getting a new phone after the 13 Pro Max, and at this point also I looked at all the Android options available. I wanted a phone with good battery and good camera. That's all I needed. I did look at some of the Samsung options, but then the 15 Pro Max seemed like such a good deal. So yeah, the 15 Pro Max now had Apple ProRes. It also had a better camera overall. Plus, it was an iPhone. You can't go wrong with an iPhone. You can never go wrong with an iPhone. So after getting the 15 Pro Max, I felt super confident, super comfortable, and I was very happy getting the 15 Pro Max because it didn't even feel like a switch. It was just an upgrade from my 13 Pro Max with better battery, better camera, and overall such a good experience with the 15 Pro Max after the 13. And I have never been happier with any phone in my life. The 15 Pro Max just came in and felt so seamless in my hands. I even started using the 15 Pro Max in my professional work, like I started shooting reels for clients and also some BTS reels for myself. So in that sense, the 15 Pro Max made a lot of sense. The camera was amazing, the battery life was amazing, the screen, well, it's as big as ever, and overall, again, it's an iPhone, so it just fits in my hands and it gets out of the way. Now, after I got the 15 Pro Max, I went on multiple trips. I'll play all these photos and videos here. The camera quality on the 15 Pro Max is something that I don't have to talk about. Even back with the 13 Pro Max, the camera was impeccable, man. Like even now, when I see the videos and photos that I got on my 13 Pro Max, I actually miss having that phone. But after getting the 15 Pro Max, well, I cannot complain. It has been a blast to use. I completely love every photo, every video that I shoot on the 15 Pro Max. I actually have no complaints even till date. Here in 2025 September, I don't have any problem using the 15 Pro Max, not only for personal work, but also for full-blown commercial work. I don't have a problem. I'm completely confident. Many times, even when the lighting is tricky and I don't want to use my bigger cameras, I just whip out the 15 Pro Max, have some lights with me, and I go to the races because I completely can trust the quality that comes out of the 15 Pro Max as somebody who makes content for a living. And yes, after I got the 15 Pro Max, again, I stopped looking at the phone market altogether. I just didn't care what phones were coming out, what features they had, and I didn't even care about the 16 Pro Max. Although the 16 Pro Max, again, I think they made the log format a little better. The cameras, I think, had slight improvements in them, and they also had that customizable button. So overall, it was a good design, but then I was already using the 15 Pro Max, and so the 16 Pro Max didn't really make a lot of sense for me to buy right away. And to tell you the truth, I actually thought I'd keep the 15 Pro Max till the 18 came out. Even when I heard that the 17 was going to be launched, I really didn't care about it because, well, I wasn't looking for a new phone at all, man. The 15 Pro Max was working completely fine. I just didn't need a new phone at all. The battery life was still good. The camera, like I've been saying, has been amazing. So I didn't really have to look for a new phone. I didn't want a new phone. I didn't even look at any phones after the 13 or the 15. Of course, between the 13 and 15, I did try just the 15. But then for somebody like me who creates content on a daily basis and who has to use the phone for running my business, the 15 just wasn't enough. and so the 15 Pro Max was the obvious choice. So like I'm saying, even the news of the 17 didn't really excite me too much. I already had everything going for me in my 15 Pro Max. But then you must be wondering, why do I actually have the 17 in my hands then? Is it because the 17 is actually that good? Well, the answer is a yes and a no. The 17 does promise to be the best iPhone ever made by Apple in the Apple universe. That is not false. It is completely true. The 17 Pro Max is the most maximalist iPhone there has ever been. So it is not wrong for Apple to say that this is the best iPhone that they've ever made. I trust them on this, but then is it actually really that good for you to go and buy the 17 Pro Max? Let's talk about this. I love that they moved away from titanium now in the 17 and they've gone back to aluminum. This feels like an obvious choice because I actually had some overheating issues in the titanium of the 15 Pro Max. During prolonged usage, during the day in the sun, the 15 Pro Max would heat up every now and then, and it would actually get a little too hot for comfort. And this was something I didn't really enjoy. I don't like my phones getting too hot in my hand, especially because I'm always holding them. They're not in my pocket, it's always in my hand. And for the most part, I am continuously shooting video on my phone, so I want it to run as cool as possible, and I also want the screen to be as bright as possible. So with the 17, I am hoping that with the 17 now I'm hoping that the screen is obviously brighter, and also my biggest hope is that the phone runs way cooler as they've now switched to the aluminum body, and also they've included this vapor chamber thing, which of course all the Android users must be laughing at us by now, but then we finally have a vapor chamber in the iPhone, and let's see if that actually makes a difference as they claim. The second thing about the 17 that I like is the telephoto camera has now been upgraded to the 48 megapixel setup. This is definitely a welcome addition because now all your pictures that you take with the telephoto lens, they will have better detail and sharpness. But then as a day-to-day user who doesn't actually shoot professionally, does this actually make a difference for you? Well, if you zoom into your pictures and want to check out the details, then yes. But then to the untrained eye, I mean, I think the 15 or the 16 are still really good cameras. And just for the camera, I don't think anybody has to actually upgrade to the 17 unless, of course, the camera is your bread and butter and you shoot for a living. The third and the most amazing part of the 17 is that the battery is even bigger now, even bigger than the 13, even bigger than the 15 and the 16, especially if you get the phone from the US, which is eSIM only. The battery is even bigger than the 17 that you get in India with a physical SIM slot, because I think you can just fit a bigger battery in the eSIM version. So that is something to keep in mind. If you do want the best battery possible, try to get your phone from the US. And honestly, to tell you the truth, none of these are reason enough for us to go and buy the new 17 because Apple is so smart. They give such minor up, they give such minor upgrades to their phones every year, and they make a big fool out of all of us. This is capitalism at its best. Apple is a brand that is a masterclass in capitalism. But hey, it's also a brand that is a champion when it comes to pure design, branding, and overall user experience. This is what matters to me. How does the phone look? How does it feel in your hands? Does it inspire? How is the design? How is the design language? Do you feel comfortable holding the phone? Are you confident carrying the phone and using the phone on a daily basis? How is the UI? Is it clean, minimal, intuitive, and very simple to use? Or is it chaotic, overly colorful, and also filled with bloatware and ads that you don't want to look at? No offense to Android here, the flexibility, the convenience, and also the value for money unmatched when it comes to Android phones. But then, are we really talking about money here? Because yet again, I tried my hardest this time around to again switch into the Android world because I didn't want to spend a lakh or more on a new phone. Because remember, I am actually more mature now. And thus began my hunt for the best smartphone money can buy. I wanted to go as low as possible, but also not compromise on my experience on a daily basis. And so I went everywhere, I checked every phone, I watched every review on YouTube, and in the process, I actually started feeling like an uncle because the tech jargon and the nomenclature in the Android universe is so difficult to understand and it's so confusing that it actually feels that time has passed in the last few years and I am actually growing older now. And so I went everywhere, checked every phone, every brand, and also watched every review possible on YouTube in the last 2 months because I wanted to see what the market is all about and how do I actually find the best phone for me personally. I looked at OnePlus, I looked at Vivo, I looked at Redmi, I looked at the Google Pixel, I looked at Samsung obviously, I also looked at Nothing, I looked at Moto, and what else? Probably, yeah, a few more brands that I actually didn't even know existed, like CMF by Nothing, and yeah, a bunch of, probably like 8 to 10 brands. I went to Chroma, I went online, I looked at every review. I tried to also go and see these phones in person. I wanted to hold every phone and look at what these phones are all about actually. Why the hell do we actually have so many brands having so many models and what is actually going on? And are there actually people buying all these phones? Because it doesn't make sense at all. There are like so many options now at every price point. Makes sense that every customer at every budget should have a good phone that they can buy. But then we actually have so much crap and it's also so difficult to choose. Of course, there were also there's this IQ, I think that's also by Vivo. There's also a couple of other brands like Lava and some gaming stuff. So there were a couple of brands that there were quite a few brands that I looked at, and it's such a joke. I mean, none of these brands have actually got it right. At least in my opinion, I don't think anybody is doing it right except Apple, Google Pixel to an extent. I don't really know what Samsung is all about. Of course, their screens are amazing and their phones are feature loaded. I love Pixel and how the iPhones are round at the edges, and all these other phones are just sharp and very boxy. And the most disappointing part about all these phones is the UI, man. The user experience and the user interface is so pathetic. Like going from the iPhone, everything feels like a downgrade except the Google Pixel. I love how the Pixel feels and how it looks. And same as with the Moto phones, even the budget ones are mostly stock Android. So these phones are good in terms of user experience. But every other brand that I mentioned, be it OnePlus, be it Nothing, Oppo and Vivo, I don't even want to mention because their UI, especially even Redmi or Xiaomi, is something that I cannot even handle at all. It's so chaotic and the icons are not at all pleasing, and the overall text on the phone, the colors and all of this completely disappoint me as a user. So those phones are completely out of my list. Even the more expensive ones in those brands, even when you start spending 50, 60 grand on a OnePlus or on an Oppo and all of that, I don't know what you're actually getting. The cameras might be okay, but then I'll just leave the cameras to a later part. I will go into depth on all the cameras on all these brands, but here I just want to rant about how bad the design language and the user interface is on most of these phones. And there is so much bloatware and so much chaos going on in these phones. The whole package is not put together. Of course, I am spoiled coming from Apple, so every other phone, even the Google Pixel, comes close. But then when you start holding these phones next to each other, and if you've had a history of using Apple, then nothing else cuts it. that it subconsciously just becomes seamless, using an iPhone and being in the Apple ecosystem with the iPad and the MacBooks and all of that makes it so seamless, so easy to use that it really gets out of your way. I went and tried the Samsung S25 Ultra, the S24 Ultra, and also the Z Fold and all these other Samsung phones. But then as soon as you open the camera, no, the experience is so bad. Like the camera feels pixelated, it's overly sharp, and once you click the picture, there's a lot of algorithm going on in order to enhance the pictures. So all these things are something that I don't really enjoy coming from the iPhone, because looking through the camera of the iPhone just feels so natural. It is lifelike and it gives you amazing color and really good video quality right off the bat. Using the iPhone to create content or to take pictures on a daily basis is just so much nicer, and there's no problem with it, because even the Pixel for that matter, when I open the camera, no, it's like so overly sharp and somehow feels like I'm using a low res screen. Because even if that's not the case, I know the screens on the Pixels or the Samsungs are really good. And I'm guessing in terms of resolution, some of these phones might have better resolution than the iPhone also. But then somehow there is some software optimization that Apple does that really makes things click and work so well, which Samsung, Google, and the rest of the brands are not able to do. I don't know why, but then the experience of using the camera on any other phone is just so bad that I started compromising on the need for a good camera. I just wanted a good phone with a clean UI, as simple as possible. So that brought me down just to Google Pixel and the Moto phones. These were the only two options that you get a complete stock Android experience. Made a lot of sense because you're getting complete stock Android, you're getting a good screen, you're getting a good size, and also the design in terms of the body was really good. It comes really close to the iPhone. Probably it has been inspired by the iPhone, so that way the Pixel was amazing. It gives you a premium feel in your hand, which many of these other brands were not able to give me. Even if you're going upwards of 50, 60,000 in nothing, Oppo or OnePlus, all these brands, even when you're spending so much, the phone still feels very plasticky and toyish, which is not the case with either the Pixel or the iPhone. Even Samsung for that matter, I kid you not, in my personal opinion, even the 25 Ultra and the Z Fold kind of give me a feel that is not very confident. I don't think the materials used in the Samsung phones are really good. It gives me a very cheap China type quality, which I don't really enjoy. So I don't know what Samsung is doing. Their phones are, of course, packed with features, and people seem to love their cameras also, the amount of zoom and all of that you get. But then if you've not used the iPhone, then I can't actually explain it in words what the iPhone is all about. And so basically, be it Samsung, be it Pixel, or any of these other brands, the cameras are so pathetic that it's actually a joke, man. I don't know why there's such a big difference in the market. There is actually so much potential for any of these brands to, fill in the gap and make a better product and give us all a better user experience. And leaving the camera aside, then that makes things a little simpler. You don't have to look at the iPhone, but then if you do want a premium feel in your hand, you want the weight to be right, you want the feel of the phone to be solid, it should also give you a feeling that you are using an expensive phone. If you are paying around 80, 90,000 for the Pixel, well, it comes close. But if I am holding an iPhone in the other hand, or if I previously come from the iPhone, then I still don't feel confident spending that kind of money for the Pixel. Although the UI is really clean, really nice, I like it. But then as an overall product, it just doesn't come close to the iPhone. The Z Fold is really amazing because once you unfold it, you have such a big screen. So if you're consuming content, or if you want to take notes on it And of course, probably if you're watching a lot of movies, then it does make sense. And it also makes sense for productivity use. I'm sure you can use multiple apps side by side and do things like that. Once it's folded, the phone is really lightweight and sleek. But then once I again start opening the camera, it just doesn't induce that confidence and it feels like a subpar experience. So spending around 1,70,000 for the Z Fold just for that novelty of, having a bigger screen and it being a fold phone didn't feel like a reason enough for me to get that. The S25 Ultra, again, like I said, it feels very plasticky and very China type. So that is something that I didn't enjoy at all. Another test that I did for most of these phones while using the camera, I recorded videos on these phones in the store for a prolonged period up to like 4 to 5 minutes, and every phone overheated. Every phone, it didn't even have to be 4 5 minutes. If I'm like clicking pictures, just keeping the camera app open for like 2 to 3 minutes, no, the phones would just overheat like mad. And holding the phones after that is a very bad experience, and that is something that I don't want in my phone. I don't want the phones to heat up to a level where it feels uncomfortable to hold. So the S25 Ultra being a flagship phone, the Z Fold, and also the Google Pixel, the 10 Pro right now, all of these phones overheated. I don't know why. Switching back and forth from the camera app is a little jittery. And also, after you click a few pictures, when you start going into the gallery, there's a lag. And on the Pixel, once you start recording video and you're moving, no, there's a lag in the camera app while recording, which is again doesn't feel professional at all. Once you're spending that kind of money, I don't know why these small issues are still happening in phones today in 2025 when the iPhone can do it. I don't know why Pixel or at least Samsung should be able to do it, right? If not the Oppos and the OnePlus and the nothings of the world, at least I expect Samsung to run cool, to give you good images. Of course, again, in real world situations, I think once you've taken the picture, it's fine, be it Samsung or Apple. Probably if you put them side by side on a screen, I won't be able to tell in most situations. But then here I'm talking about these phones as a user when you are actually holding the phone and clicking the picture on a daily basis. How is the experience, Because I don't just want to click the picture and then look at it later. For me, the whole shooting experience of seeing the picture on the screen while you click it, of seeing that movement, is really what matters to me as a photographer, and that is something I enjoy. So I don't want that experience to be spoiled in any way. So in that sense, this whole rant is about me being disappointed on how there is so much chaos and crap in the smartphone market right now, and how nobody is being able to match up to the iPhone's camera. I'm sure there are phones that have better battery than even the 17 Pro Max. So there are many phones and features in the Android universe. I'm sure Samsung has screens that are more robust and resistant than the Apple screens. But then as an overall package, in terms of branding, design, pure user experience, and camera, nothing comes close to the iPhone right now. So should you just now go and get the new 17? Before I answer that, let me just tell you what I'd take if the 17 is not in your budget or it's not an option in some way or form. You don't want an iPhone. What are the other options available right now in terms of a good experience? According to me, the Google Pixel is a really good phone. Go for it if you have the budget for it. The overall experience, the camera, I think, is good enough. And the phone as a package in the hand, how it feels, is really good. Apart from that, do I recommend any of the Samsung phones? I mean, Samsung has been such a disappointing experience for me. The Z Fold, in some sense, has some uniqueness to it because it's a really slim, foldable phone. So if somebody wants a big screen, and you use a lot of productivity apps and want to do multitasking on your phone, then the Z Fold is something that you can think about. Also, the Pixel, I think, has a foldable phone too. So if you want a foldable phone, I think it will be between the Z Fold and the Pixel. I'd personally go for the Pixel Fold. That is something that gives you a stock Android experience. The Samsung UI is still something that I can't get used to. But then, well, if I was left with no option, I think the Samsung UI is still better than most of the Android phones compared to the Oppos and the Vivos and the Xiaomis of the world. The Samsung UI is still quite fine. It is okay, but not my favorite. And if budget is a concern and you want to go as low as possible, you just want a good value for money phone that has decent performance, that feels good in your hand, and also has a very clean UI. I think any of the Moto phones are an amazing deal. I also tried to see if I can go really cheap in this whole smartphone game, probably 10 to 15,000. But then as you start coming below 20, 25,000, you start compromising to a large extent. You stop getting a good screen, you obviously stop getting a good battery. And also for me personally, I want my phones to be IP68 and 69 resistant because I like washing my phone from time to time, if not on a daily basis, because I want my phones to be clean in my hands. We leave our phones in multiple places, multiple people handle the phones probably, and we leave it here and there on so many surfaces. So I don't like my phones to be dirty. So a big requirement for me from my smartphone that it has to be IP68 and 69 rated so that I can wash them. So that's what. Once you start coming down from 20 to 25,000, you stop getting IP68 and 69. I think the Moto Edge 60 Fusion is the cheapest phone that you can get with decent amount of waterproofing. Unless of course you can do with a phone that doesn't have waterproof and doesn't have IP68 and 69, then the Moto phones that come between 15 to 20,000 are still a good option. They have good battery life, they have stock Android UI, and the overall feel in your hand is quite good of the Moto phones. Motorola is something that I would look at if budget was a concern. 20 to 25 max 30,000 with the Moto phones. Honestly, in the Android world, I don't know why you'd spend more than 30,000 for a phone because you actually won't be getting great camera. You also won't be getting great user experience. And yeah, there is actually no point in spending more than 30,000 for an Android phone. So if you are somebody who's using an Android phone and that costs more than 30,000, I think you should rethink your life. But of course, Samsung and Pixel are two brands that you can be spending good amount of money. And between these two also, I think Pixel is the way to go. Samsung personally, as a product in my hand, I hate it. It's very disappointing. But probably in daily usage, performance and features, it is a really good option. So if you don't really care about how your phone looks, because I think Samsung phones look horrendous compared to the Pixel or the iPhones. They just look like a very cheap China type phone. So personally for me, but then again the Z Fold is a unique option. If you have the budget for it and you want a fold phone that is really thin, then that is your only option. So that's the range as far as the smartphones are concerned, starting from the 20,000 of the Moto Edge 60 Fusion up to 30,000 for the Moto Edge 60 Pro. That is that is where I'd cut it off for an Android phone. Of course, if Pixel is something that you want to look at, camera is not that important. You just want a Pixel because, well, I actually don't know why people buy the Pixel when you have the Moto. You're getting most of the stock Android features in the Moto and pushing it to upwards of 60, 70,000 just for the Pixel doesn't make sense for me. You'd rather just get an iPhone at this point because the plain 17 right now is probably the best deal in the iPhone world because you have 120 hertz refresh rate now on the plain 17, and I'm guessing the battery is slightly better. So if you're somebody who doesn't create content for a living and doesn't have to rely on your camera on a daily basis, I think there's no better deal than the 17. If your budget is between 70 to 1 lakh, just blindly go for the iPhone. And if you don't want to spend that kind of money, just get the Motos and you should be good to go. And if you do want to spend more than a lakh, cameras are really important for you, battery life is really important for you, then probably the 17 Pro and the 17 Pro Max are the top of the line options because, like I've been explaining, the iPhones are unbeatable, unmatchable when it comes to overall user experience, design, and in-hand feel. So yeah, that kind of sums up today's rant about smartphones and your buying decisions because Samsung is out of the picture for me, Pixel is out of the picture for me, Moto is a really good option if budget is a concern, and rest of the brands don't even count for me. Nothing, OnePlus, Oppo, Vivo, none of these brands matter unless you just need a phone to put a SIM and make some calls. Even then, I just can't bear to look at these phones. Probably after some time, you can kind of get used to the UI, but then there is some kind of a mental block for me coming from the iPhone. I just cannot digest the UIs on these phones. So coming back to the point of today's video, should you actually get the iPhone 17? And I personally think you should. I think everyone should just get the iPhone 17. Right now, Apple has an iPhone for every kind of user. If you are somebody who's just a normal user who doesn't really rely on the camera on a daily basis, then the iPhone 17 right now is the best deal in the smartphone world because it's an iPhone, it has a good display, it should have a decent battery, and the cameras are actually not that bad. It's still an iPhone. Just go and get the iPhone 17, especially if you're somebody who's coming from the 11, 12, 13, 14. I don't even know if people are still using the 11 and 12, but then if you are on the 13, 14, then 17 does make sense. If you are using 15 and 16, I personally think you don't really have to go and get the 17. Don't fall for all the FOMO and the hype that Apple creates with its launch events and looking at people on social media. You don't really have to go and get the latest and greatest phone right now. It's not going to really help you in your life in any way. But then if you are somebody who is a content creator, who shoots for a living, you also run a business and you need to shoot your own content on a daily basis, you need that content to be the best of quality, then the Pro and Pro Max really make a lot of sense right now. But then I'm again saying this, if you are on a 15 Pro, 15 Pro Max or a 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max, the 17 really doesn't make sense for me right now. You should probably wait and just get the 18 after a year or so because the 17, the upgrades in the 17 are not oh so amazing for you to actually go and get the new phone. Of course, if you have money lying around and you want to show off that you have the latest iPhone and it is kind of a status symbol for you, then probably you should definitely go and get the 17 Pro Max because that is the phone with 3 cameras and the biggest iPhone right now. So if you are somebody who wants to upgrade your social status or you are somebody who relies on your camera on a daily basis, then the latest iPhone makes sense, but then you can still hold off from getting the 17 Pro Max if you are still using the 15 and the 16. I think they should give you good performance at least for another year. If you are on the 16 Pro Max, then I think you don't really have to get the 17 at all. You can definitely wait for the 18. But if you are on the 15 and you're bored of it, then if you are on the 15 and you're bored of it, which actually you shouldn't be bored of because that phone is really amazing, it can definitely get by till you get the 18. So there is actually no reason for you to switch from the 15 and 16 to the 17. But if you have broken your screen on the 15 or the 16 and you don't have Apple Care Plus, which means you need to spend upwards of 30,000-40,000 to get an original screen and to get back your full iPhone experience, then probably it does make sense to actually put that money towards a 17 or a 17 Pro and get the new phone because, well, spending so much money on just replacing your screen obviously doesn't make sense. So if you are somebody in a tricky situation like that, you should probably then just go and get the 17. And that is what happened with me. I recently broke the screen of my 15 Pro Max and I had to replace it with either a fake screen for 10,000 rupees or a completely original screen for up to 35,000-40,000 rupees. I didn't want to spend that kind of money on an old phone that I was anyway going to replace in another year or so. So I just replaced it with a fake screen for 10,000 rupees. But of course, let me tell you, the screen that I put on that phone for 10,000 rupees is so horrible that it completely screwed the experience of the iPhone. I can't even hold that phone for more than 5 minutes because it heats up like mad. And using that phone for shooting pictures or videos is a complete no, because like I'm saying, using it using it for 5 minutes heats up that phone like mad. And so imagine you taking pictures and videos for a long time. I can't even hold that phone. I literally have to go put the phone and my hands in the freezer for some time because that's how hot the phone gets. If you have a 15 or a 16 and you've broken the screen of that phone, don't try to repair that phone with an original screen. Just put that money towards the 17. Probably you can get a fake screen done just so that you can get your data back. And that is what I did with my phone. I have the 15 here, which has the fake screen. I had to put that screen because I had data from the last 2 years on this phone. Without the screen, there's no way I could get that data. And for the last 2 months, I have been suffering using this phone with the fake screen. It's been so bad, it's been so hot, and that's the reason I've done all of this research and I've gone into the market and looked at every phone possible and to see if I can do without an iPhone and to see if I can actually spend as less as possible and just get a decent phone that works. So this has been my experience with using smartphones and trying to see what the best smartphones are at every budget. So in my humble opinion, get the 17 Pro or the Pro Max if you are a content creator, if you are a business owner who has to create and post content on a daily basis, then do get the 17. Of course, keeping in mind that you are coming from an older phone like the 13 or 14. If you are on the 15 and 16, it doesn't make sense at all. Unless, of course, again, if you have broken your 15 and 16 and you need to get it repaired, then definitely go and get the 17. Do not get your old phone repaired because after you repair it also, it'll only last you for so long. Whereas if you get the 17, it'll probably take you further than your old phone would. So this is my opinion and advice on what phones you should get. Let me know in the comments the phone that you are using or the phone that you are looking to buy and why you are buying that phone. This is Prudvi signing off. Thank you so much for being here and listening to my rant. Hope I've made sense and have been able to guide you in your buying decision of your next smartphone.